Last panel, y'all are doing really well. Thanks for being here. Really heavy hitter panel that we have here today. Excited to get into these brand strategies. Again, I am Jesse Burns. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Grasslands. We are a PR and marketing agency based in Denver. But let's have the panelists introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll get right into it. Go ahead, Wes.
I'm Wesley Hine. I'm a co-founder of Mammoth Distribution. We own and operate Heavy Hitters, Almora, and Papa and Barkley. We also distribute 710 Labs in California. And then separate from Mammoth, I'm the president of the Cannabis Distributors Association.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Gutschall. I'm a co-founder of Jointly. We're based in Los Angeles, and our mission is to help the industry with purposeful and intentional cannabis consumption. And so we've developed a platform to match up consumers with the products most likely to work for their consumption goals.
I'm Austin DeAngelis, Chief Commercial Officer at Final Bell and 14th Round. We partner with brands in California, specifically on the hardware and packaging side, as well as doing some co-packing on the vape and pre-roll.
Hi, I'm Matthew Sternberg. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Deep Roots Partners. We are a digital agency that helps dispensaries and deliveries, some brands sell more weed through organic SEO, high-converting websites, Google ads, and YouTube ads as well. So, yeah, excited for the talk today.
I'm Adam Banke, co-founder of High Road. We're a sales agency where brands come to us to represent them out in the market to dispensaries, sell and grow their brand. But we also very much consult with them on a very regular basis with a feedback loop on how to improve their business. We work really hard to have a well-rounded portfolio so that we can go to dispensaries to meet their needs in many different ways.
All right, thanks everyone. Just to get our panelists a little information, how many brands and retailers are left here today? Just throw your hands up if so. All right, a few else, nice. That really helps. And then investors? Anybody left? All right. So let's set the stage here, everybody. Not only what's happening here in the California market for brands and for retailers, and we all understand taxes, gray market, all of these things, but really, how are brands and retailers, how are they competing right now? And Wes, you want to get us started?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that an awful lot of them, and in fact, I'd say the vast majority of them are competing using price. Which is about the worst thing you can do if you're trying to develop a brand. Pricing is not branding, it's a tactic. Discounting destroys branding. And so the key with branding, and I know we're going to be talking a lot about this, so I won't monopolize it, is you need to be able to emphasize those differentiating factors, those things that will mean something. So somebody to them uniquely, so they're not going to look at it and go, but I can get this for something else. If you treat your product as a commodity, then everybody will treat it as a commodity.
And Eric, I know you have really strong feelings about this as well. Do you want to weigh in on that price compression?
I do, and I'd also like to say part of that price compression is also due to shopping by potency as well. And so, just because something has the highest THC content doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best to help you sleep or to help manage muscle pain or things like that.
And Austin, you said price sensitivity at the consumer level. There's headwinds there. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, and I think you heard this a good amount today. As price compression happens at the retail level ultimately to the consumer, people are going to chase that bottom. Brands are going to continue to try to participate at the retail level. What we're trying to do at 14th Round specifically to allow brands to stand out is through hardware and packaging, and through being able to try to take what the brand wants to be, what they want to be able to represent, and put that through hardware and packaging. As in cannabis, you don't have your traditional marketing channels that other industries have. So to be able to stand out on the shelf a little bit, even with price compression, having a uniqueness around a piece of hardware, uniqueness around a piece of packaging helps the brands kind of stand out as pricing continues to compress, and it becomes really a knife fight at the retail level.
Absolutely. And then Matt, you said that it's really about seeing themselves in their product, right? Do you want to elaborate on that and how that helps you stand out in this market?
Yeah, I think for both brand and retailers, what's so important, it's, the consumer needs to see themselves in your product or your experience. because ultimately they're making a choice to come to you, right? You can have all the marketing tactics in the world, you can plaster the world in billboards, but unless that experience is what, what the experience you're advertising is what they're actually getting, that's all that matters, right? And then other than that, then yes, we're going to, basically the rest of the industry, if you're not delivering on experience, you're delivering on price. And, we're also, I think, seeing also a balance of having to deliver on price, but also delivering on experience. So yeah, it's just a very tough game right now, but ultimately, whatever you do, it's delivering that promise to the consumer, whether you're a brand or retailer.
So, Adam, you said that there are many brands out there competing on what everybody has, right? High quality. What does high quality do for a brand in the market right now?
Yeah, high quality, just to be real, everyone says they're high quality, right? And so it's almost to the point where oftentimes it means nothing. Like you prove it to the retailer, to the consumer, to the bud tender by showing their product, showing them your product and having it be high quality and them to perceive it be high quality based on all the intrinsics of the brand. And I think something that gets missed in saying things like quality is oftentimes the brand doesn't really have a true story, and that they talk a little bit more about themselves as opposed to how it helps the consumer win and how it helps the retailer win. So like you have to tell what your brand is about, where you're from, the founder's story, but how can the consumer win by purchasing your product?
That's great, and I want to bring that back to Eric. How can a consumer tell with this?
Well, I think it's, if you put yourself in the shoes of a retailer, and there are retailers out here, it's just a very, very difficult, opportunity to be in a place where you can train your bud tenders in a way to reframe the conversation with their customers around potency and price. And so oftentimes when a customer walks into a store and says, hey, give me your highest THC product, or what do you have for, buy one, get one today? It's easy for the bud tender to say, oh, that's easy. I know what the highest THC content is product. I know what's on sale today. It's much more difficult to reframe the conversation around what their intention is and what they've actually come in there to accomplish through their purchase. And so it's a really difficult environment. And lots of folks spend a lot of time training their bud tenders, but at the end of the day, we talk to a lot of retailers, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to train a bud tender to be competent on the floor where they can actually upsell a product, where they can actually create a really high level customer experience and engagement. And that's really difficult to do to train them. And at the same time, their length of employment is not very long either, roughly less than a year. So it's just a really tall order for dispensaries, and you can see why price and potency kind of win the day, because it's the easiest thing for their bud tenders to help the customer with.
Yeah, so Austin, I want to bring it back to you. We're talking about storytelling and we're talking about feelings consumers get from products. How do you express those in the packaging work that you do so that a brand can stand out, can signal both of those things with just that first touch, that first visual look on a store shelf?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually something that we talk about a lot of the time with the brands as we're and bring them into our cycle, if you will, is really understanding first and foremost, as Adam said earlier, the story, where the brand come from, what are they trying to accomplish, what are their goals, and then it's to be able to get into the design aspect. What do they want it to look like? What do they want it to feel? How do they want what do they want their consumers to feel or to touch, when they do get that product? We find that the eye test is always something very important to brands, being able to make sure that whatever product they put, as I said earlier, on the shelf is going to stand out. If it's a 510 thread or an AIO, being able not just to look boilerplate, if you will, or just kind of like everybody else, but being able to tell a little bit of like who they are with either a matte coloring versus not. And so being able to just take out the personality of the brand as much as we can through hardware, through packaging. really gives brands confidence to stand behind that hardware and packaging. It also gives them confidence as they go into retail that this product represents who they are and who their business is. And I think it's really interesting for me, at least, and for our team, to hear brands as they go through, this is what I want it to look like, or this is how I want it to hit, because we're learning a lot about what makes, or what success looks like for that brand. And then we can be able to turn our products into what they're representing.
Awesome. And Wes, I want to bring this back to you because you have a portfolio of brands, right, that have good packaging, that have power in this marketplace. Can you tell us a little bit about, the strategies for those, right? Leaning into what Austin just said.
I could, but I don't want to.
Okay.
When you asked if there were any investors, and we're at an investor conference, not a single hand went up, a question came to me I'd like to answer.
Go for it.
First, I'll tell you the question, are we idiots? We're here in California. Taxes are ridiculous. Enforcement is capricious. Large, unregulated market, et cetera, yet here we are slugging it out and talking about what we do in dispensary. Shouldn't we just move to a limited license market? Answer, absolutely not. And if anybody out there is raising money, I'm sorry there's no investors, but please take this message to them. If you are developing a brand, I will submit there is no better place to do it in the world than California. It is the largest, yes.
There we go.
It is the largest, I'll be an Elliott Lewis and drop the mic. It is the largest cannabis market in the world. It is filled with consumers who are discerning. They know. They push brands to constantly improve and give their best stuff. If you remain static, then you are yesterday's news. And the other thing is a completely open market. Yes, that means it's cutthroat, and it is very hard to do well. But there is, unlike Florida, there is no True Leaf that owns 30% of the market. The largest retailers in California have less than 3% of retail licenses. And so you can get out there, and if you build a brand in California, and if somebody's smart enough to invest in your brand, that brand will travel to other states. If they invest in a brand in Ohio, not to be rude, that brand is probably not going to travel to California.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And we're going to move into the second part here, really about tactics, considerations for building that brand here in California, right? So, Adam, I want to start with you and really talk about this risk aversion that happens in the retail setting and where to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look from the perspective of a retail buyer, right, what are things that get them in trouble or get them in hot water, maybe potentially lose their job? It's when they're not ordering the correct products that drive revenue within their store. Or, and so they've got to be risk averse, and they're almost trained to say no most of the time, right? And that's a test to brands, how they respond to that. And so you've really got to be prepared as a brand to have really solid rebuttals to anything and everything a retailer may say. And so that's one of the things that we continually work with our team. And what do you say in this situation? You don't just move on to the next product or the next brand. You've got to stand your ground and have, keep distilling it down to the why, so you can have the proper rebuttal for it. And then, getting through that, you've got to make sure, building trust with the retailer, having, consistency in quality, consistency in potency, consistency in perceived value. All those things are important, not only when you sell it in, but, as you grow with them and as they keep on ordering, from you and whatever tactics you may keep on having with them. And so it's just really what it comes down to is meeting their needs. And that can be a challenge when there's so many other brands who might be similar to what you're doing. And how do you stick out? You've got to find a way, because if you're too similar to a brand that's already in a shop, it's going to be an uphill battle, because they might be already feeling good about what they have in that shop, and why make a change?
Yeah. And so, Matt, to kind of dovetail there, excuse me, you had mentioned in our prep that it's really about understanding that core audience, right? And the only way that you could build a great brand here, and one that would stand out, is to understand that core audience. Can you speak to that a little bit and tell us how you do it today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing, right, is, it's defining who you're talking to, right? So, in cannabis, right, the majority of our products are consumables. You got vapes, flower, and so on and so forth. And at each category level, there are different sets of consumers that you have to speak to, right? And even with certain, I'll use Pop and Barkley as a great example, right? So that product was designed for, the older consumer that's looking for health and wellness, but also, even with the packaging with, the founder's father on it. We did work with them. I did work with them back in the kind of early days, Prop 215. And you would think that would only speak to an older consumer, but realistically, it spoke to a wide consumer, and it spoke to a lot of folks that actually needed wellness products, from people in their 20s and athletes to what it was initially created for. So, and I think we talk to a lot of dispensaries and a lot of brands, and the first thing that we'll always ask dispensaries is, why should someone shop with you, right? Or even a brand, why should someone consume their product? And with dispensaries, most of the answer is, we have the best prices, we have the best weed, we have the best product. And I think that was echoed multiple times here. And so I think in defining your audience is, first, really find a group or person that you're talking to, and then you'll find a wider audience within that. But just have a stance, understand who you're talking to, and have a product that fits their needs. And most likely you'll find tangential audiences and communities that can benefit from it. And then that's what ultimately starts driving revenue, right? So.
Yes, excellent. So let's get into some actual hard-hitting tactics here for keeping brands going. And I'm going to start with my own, right, to be able to stand out, which is spend your money as close to the point of sale as you can, right? Whether that's bud tenders or on the packaging in the store, right? The closer you can spend your money to the sale, that is where you're going to be able to find success, or at least weight your budget that way. That's something that's worked for me in my CPG past, and something that I wanted to share. But let's go down the line. What is your key tactic to really bringing your brand to the forefront of a consumer's mind, getting that mental space that you need when they have a need, they think of you, they purchase you?
Well, you said it. It was funny, in the go-go days with legalization in California, people raised a lot of money and they spent it on absolutely ridiculous things. And the only thing that worked, as we saw, were the people who were spending the money inside the dispensary. Unlike other forms of retail, the bud tenders, the retail experience is incredibly instrumental in purchasing decisions. And an awful lot of people go in thinking one thing, and a bud tender just kind of goes, well, if you like that. And they're like, well, what do you mean by that? And so it's really important that they know your product, that they understand, for those various things that we're saying, it's not just about potency. They're not saying, oh, it's high quality, that they understand those differentiators. The only way to do that is to be in the dispensaries. You have to have, in my opinion, a ground game where people are able to go there on a regular basis, develop relationships, see how the products are being merchandised, answer questions that they've got, resolve any issues that are there. California is a big state, so it's not easy to do. But if you can't do that, then narrow your focus, because you have to be inside the dispensaries.
We're a little different at Jointly because we're not a manufactured product or a brand or a retailer. But for us, it really comes down to effects-based, right? That's super important. Like I was talking about before, the reframing to the customer. And quite frankly, the growth cohorts of cannabis, people that are coming to the plant and coming to dispensaries for the first time or the second time, that's a really, really important framework, I think, to get them started on. Otherwise, if it's about potency or if it's about price, too many bad things can happen. Grandma takes, an edible that she shouldn't have taken, and it's too strong, and then she goes and tells 100 of her friends that you should never do this again, and we just can't allow that to happen in the industry.
Yeah, one I would add on what Wesley said, which is specifically around trade marketing and trade marketing playbook. So being able to make sure that, yeah, as Wesley said, being able to be at the retail level, know the bud tenders, know the buyers, but as important is the feedback loop of what's being said at retail. What's the consumer feedback? What's the retail feedback? What's the purchasing manager feedback? And being able to iterate on that constantly and having that playbook be a living document. And then the second one that I would say is definitely on innovation. And so that doesn't mean be, a jack of all trades. It means, having your focus or your lane and being able to continuously innovate and compound on that innovation to have the best product that a certain brand in their specific space can be able to put out. So a trade marketing playbook and the feedback loop to be able to iterate, as well as innovation would be the two biggest key factors for me.
Okay, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I think for both brands and retailers, right, once you have that brand and messaging, you have to, in many forms create content around it. That could be video, that could be written text, that can be, trade marketing materials. It all comes down to some sort of visual, audio, or photographic or just kind of designed out aid. And I always kind of say in cannabis, sales and marketing marketing gets a bad rap in cannabis, and marketing effectively and content is the kind of the bullets and the tools that your sales team needs, right? Or if you're a brand, the sales team. If you're a retailer, it's content of why a customer should come to you. And for a brand, it's why a retailer should carry you, and why once you're actually in the store, having content around why a consumer should take you to have you choose choose your eighth versus another, right? It was said earlier today here by Rusty at Old Pal. They create a lot of content and share that with the retailers, right? So you want to give retailers that basically just you want to reduce the questions and objections for both either your buyer or consumer, and the way to do that is through engaging content.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think looking from the perspective of, what you do after you get that yes from the retail buyer, that's when the battle really begins. There's a lot of work to be done, and it's everything from, getting the appropriate samples to the bud tenders for them to embrace it, to, having an education that's not too down the line from your first delivery, getting that scheduled. Because once there's a bad taste in either the retail buyer's mind or the bud tender, it's a tough battle to climb after that. Even from a merchandising perspective, you talk about merchandising, the difference between success can be the difference between being on the top shelf or the middle shelf. The traffic flow of the store, if the retailer will let you put your products in certain places, sometimes you can negotiate that a little bit, but and it's not a set it and forget it. You got to keep on going back and make sure that that you're continually fulfilling their needs, and that's why we put a lot on our team to make sure that they're consistently out in the market every day. This is not the type of role in a sales role for most reps. Like some reps in the industry think they can get a lot done behind the computer. Maybe they can. But the real work and the most effective work, in my mind, is you've got to be out there every day, in the streets to make it happen. So.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on what I wanted to hit last here in our last few minutes, and we heard a lot today about retail loyalty and programs and driving those types of things, but how will you know that people are loyal to your brand, right? In our last few, like, what can you do and how will you know, and then what do you do with that, right? So Wes, do you just want to get started? Just a quick loyalty thing, what it means to your brands, and do you focus on that even?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the repeat customers are the absolute most important, the most important thing. Look, there's a lot of amazing things about this industry, but one of the things that really sucks is the quality of data. It is just we're still in the very early stages. But look, getting back to that, if you have people going to the dispensaries, you're talking, they'll tell you. They'll say, oh, there's some loyal customers that come in and X, Y, Z, and and I know there's some retailers here, I see them, and they're very vocal, aren't you, Jared, with how our products are doing and so forth.
Excellent. What about you, Eric?
I think, for us, it's about people using our app and our software and getting a good experience from it. And the best way for them to get a good experience is for us to provide accurate recommendations for the products that are most likely to work for them. And so a lot goes into that, but generally it's the wisdom of the crowd through our app, and then creating an AI-driven virtual bud tender, an in-store bud tender assistant tool. And for us, that's what creates the loyalty. And the loyalty for the retailers too, because we do speak to tons and tons of retailers. It's all about, can the bud tender provide a good recommendation?
Yeah.
Can they do it in a timely fashion? Can they do it in a way that where they recommend the right product that's going to cause the consumer to have a great experience and then come back to the store because they trust the experience and the advice that they've gotten?
Awesome. What about you, Austin?
Yeah, I would say absolutely valuable and important. I think it's, not to make it super simple, but it really just comes down to the product saying what it's, or doing what the product says it's going to do, and delivering on what you say the product is going to do. And the consumer has that same feeling, they're going to continue to come back. As an example, as Wes said, the data in our industry is fragmented and not great. While I was at Ease, we would see very clearly there are a handful of brands and specific products, like Akiva Midnight Blueberry Sleep Gummy, the effect-based, where if you can, to the consumer, deliver on the sleep aspect, as an example, that consumer is going to come back and be able to get that product. So I saw it a lot as related to effects like sleep or calming or something like that. Again, delivering on that promise, and I think the consumer will continue to be loyal as long as you do.
Excellent. Matt, do you want to touch that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of loyalty from a brand perspective, again, as you engage with your retailer, they're reordering, you're seeing consumers, mention it, and then from a digital perspective, kind of pulling in some kind of, some SEO measurement, is you can go online, you can use third-party tools to see how much your brand is searched online, and a lot of the major brands in cannabis, they have high search volume. You can see, it estimated to get 30,000 searches a month or 1,000 searches a month. And if people are actually actively trying to go out and find your brand, what you're doing from a marketing and branding perspective is driving loyalty. So at least from a branding side, it's a good, one good measurement to look at.
All right, well, the clock has turned red. Final word right there, Adam.
Yeah, I'll just add, from a loyalty perspective with a retailer, it's delivering on what you told them in the pitch that you would do, and consistently keeping up with that. And then if you can over-deliver, that's how you have the real loyalty.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for sticking around for the panel. We'll see you in the bar here shortly.